Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Turning Grief into Growth. I'm Jennifer Santiago. So grief changes everything, right? It affects our body. It affects our mind. It could even affect our sense of time. But sometimes healing doesn't always begin with words. Sometimes healing can begin with absolute stillness, maybe just the breath, maybe just a little bit of motion connected to the breath. Sometimes healing can begin with yoga. Today, I am going to share 3 science-backed reasons why yoga can be a powerful tool for managing your grief. But before I do that, I should probably start with some background, why I'm even qualified to discuss this topic. Number 1, why yoga? Number 2, yoga and grief. So number 1, why yoga? I have been practicing yoga for over 25 years. I can actually remember the first time I walked into a yoga studio. It was a power yoga studio, a hot one in Miami Beach, Florida. And I was instantly just smitten, not just because of the effect on my body, how much I love the physical practice of yoga, but how I felt afterwards, how I felt so still and calm. So you might know that there are many different styles of yoga, and there are thousands of yoga studios all over the United States and all over the world. And because of my lifestyle and my job, I've had a chance to practice in, I want to say, over 30 countries and definitely at least 30 different studios in the United States. So my practice is very diverse and very rigorous, from hot power yoga in Miami Beach, Florida and Tel Aviv to Sivananda yoga at an ashram in Grass Valley, California and in Nassau, Bahamas. I've practiced Bikram yoga in London. I've practiced vinyasa all over the world because that's a style you'll find just about anywhere. And of course, I've also incorporated a lot of meditative practices too. But on top of just being a yoga practitioner, I've also become a yoga teacher. And that journey started at a beautiful yogashala called Kranti in Goa, India. Unfortunately, it was interrupted by COVID, but I spent 100 hours studying Ashtanga yoga at Kranti. What an amazing program, which brings students from all over the world. What an amazing location. It's right on the water. We did a deep dive into the primary series and secondary series. Every single day started with a yoga practice, then a meditation, then another afternoon class that really was posture focused. And you incorporate into that yoga philosophy and yoga biology and physiology. It was really a wonderful way to start my yoga teacher journey. And then I capped off that yoga teacher journey at Five Peaks Yoga Studio here in Northern Virginia. They have studios in Purcellville and in Lansdowne. That's where I finished my 200 hours of teacher training. So I'm not just a yoga teacher and a yoga practitioner, but I have a very deep understanding of how yoga can help manage stress and build resilience. And that understanding comes from 2 parts, 2 places: the educational experience, the research side, and also the actually experience side in life. Let me start with the research. My master's degree in military studies from Marine Corps University's Command and Staff College focused on resilience. And my paper, my 25-page thesis, was on how the military, specifically the Marine Corps, should incorporate more yoga to build resilience. Resilience is a topic that is extremely important in the military. It's a national security issue because troop readiness is directly related to national security. And so I researched how the military had already been incorporating yoga to build resilience in its troops. So, for example, the Army and both the Air Force had piloted programs, but the Marine Corps had not. That is why I focused my paper on that, and I will put a link to my paper in the comments. Because of my master's degree research, I do know quite a bit about the science behind yoga and building resilience and combating grief and trauma through yoga. I also have lived experiences, having survived grief myself. I lost my fiance when I was living overseas in 2015, and 1 month later, I lost my father, who happens to be a veteran. He served in World War II, and I feel like that probably ages me, but full disclosure, my dad was significantly older than my mother and had me when he was well into his 50s. But my dad died at the ripe old age of 93. He lived a wonderful life. His death was a tragedy in the sense that I lost him, and I miss him, and that it came on the heels of losing my fiance just 1 month prior. So that really compounded my grief. I also lost my mother in 2020. So, bottom line is, I've lived through quite a bit of loss and quite a bit of grief. And I understand how my yoga practice helped me navigate that grief journey. Now, with that bit of background, today I want to share 3 science backed reasons why yoga can be a powerful tool for navigating grief. Number 1, yoga calms the nervous system. When you're grieving, our body can feel like it's in this constant fight or flight mode, right? Tight chest, racing thoughts, shallow breath. But studies show that yoga can activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's your body's rest and restore response. It helps lower cortisol, your stress hormone, and it brings your body back to a place of calm. So yoga quite literally tells your body, you are safe now. Number 2, yoga can help regulate emotions. So grief can feel like a wave, sometimes crashing over you completely out of nowhere. But practicing yoga boosts levels of a neurotransmitter called GABA, which is linked to reduced anxiety and greater emotional stability. And it also helps manage the part of your brain that manages emotions. So that means over time, you'll feel a lot more resilient, more able to ride those waves without being pulled under. Number 3, yoga allows you to accept what's real without judgment. Sometimes that's called mindfulness. So yoga teaches presence with the connection of the breath. You are brought into the present moment. So all those swirling thoughts, all those emotions, eventually you can get under control through the practice of yoga, specifically by connecting your breath with movement. Research shows that this kind of mindful awareness can actually help you process pain rather than avoid it. Now, I know this is really, really difficult to actually put into practice. So many of us, when we're going through grief, and I'm certainly guilty of this too, try to avoid those terrible emotions, right? Try to avoid the overwhelming sadness, the overwhelming depression, the overwhelming pain. But once you learn to actually go with the emotions, to accept them, to feel them, you'll find that they pass over you much quicker than if you avoid them. In grief, this can be life-changing, right? It makes room for tears. It makes room for laughter or whatever comes up in the moment. So those are 3 science-backed reasons why yoga can help us process our grief. And listen, everyone's grief journey is different, but all of us have the same physiological response to grief and to trauma in the moment, though to varying degrees, right? It really does depend on your resilience going into the trauma event or the grief event. As I promised, I'm going to put a link in the comments to my paper on building resilience in the military through yoga. I called it Downward Facing Devil Dogs, which I'm kind of proud of. I thought that was quite clever. I'm also going to put a link to a webinar by the Maryland University Center for Integrative Health that I thought was very informative and helped me research this topic for you today. Thank you once again for joining me on Turning Grief into Growth. I hope that this was informative. I wanted to keep it short and sweet and not do a real big deep dive into the science, because I'll just put a link to my paper and you can go ahead and look at that if you have some time and are interested in learning more. I also will put some book recommendations, books that I used while I was researching my paper that might be informative and helpful by some really, really prominent experts in this field. I hope if you found this channel because you are managing your own grief journey, that this offers some help and support. Like I said, everyone's grief journey is completely individualized and all of us go through these emotions in varying ways, but there is this connecting fiber between all of us that is within our body that I think that we can begin to regulate through a practice of yoga, through a practice that links breath with movement, and through a practice of mindfulness that allows us to feel the emotions, to accept them without judgment, and not to fight them. Thank you, everyone. See you next time on Turning Grief into Growth. Take care.